Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope and my team selection video for Game Week 7. But as always in my team selection videos, we're going to take a look back at what happened in this past game week. That's what we're going to start with here today with my wildcard in Game Week 6. But I have already made a video about this earlier in the week, so you can check that out if you want to be more in depth about all my wildcard decisions and what I ended up choosing for my wildcard in Game Week 6 in the end. But after I've talked about my Game Week 6 score, I'm also going to go into my free hit draft from Game Week 6 as well, because I do a free hit draft every single week on these videos. I'm going to take a look at what happened with my free hit drafting in Game Week 6, which is, spoilers, kind of similar to my actual team in Game Week 6. The team is pretty damn similar, and it actually got the similar score as well. We're also going to take a look at a Game Week 7 potential free hit as well, if you're on a free hit chip for some reason, or you just want to know which are the best players to target for this particular game week. I'm going to talk about those guys. And then finally, we're going to go into my plans for Game Week 7 as well. But yeah, first let's go into Game Week 6 and my score and my rank from that game week. I got 54 points, which is better than most people that wildcarded. And that's mainly down to me dropping Luis Diaz for Dibbling, which gave me enough money to have Watkins on top of Havertz as my strikers next to Haaland. And that also made me have another player that I can bench in Dibbling, and that meant that I could start Rodgers, unlike a lot of people who benched Rodgers this week on a wildcard. So ended up with 54 points, pretty happy with that. Could have had more as well with Sanchez as my goalkeeper. He was kind of also a differential kind of pick. Also had a bit of a not mistake or but something that I slightly regret, I guess, going with Lewis rather than Guardiola in defense, because Guardiola obviously scored. He has more goal threat than Lewis, but I think Lewis is going to provide better value across the season in general, or maybe not in the season, but at least initially now. Without Rodri, it seems like Lewis is playing quite a lot, and he's playing very offensively, and we saw in the Champions League how good he can be for Man City as well. So I think he's still better value than Guardiola, so I don't really regret the pick, but it's just a bit of a regretful decision that I had Guardiola from Game Week 1 through Game Week 5 without him scoring me much points at all. And then I swap him out in Game Week 6, and then he scores and Lewis blanks. But anyways, that's how it goes sometimes in FPL. Yeah, pretty happy with my team. You can see my midfielder, Mbuemo, Semenyo, Rodgers all returned. My captaincy differential player, Saka, did not return. Sadly, I went against Haaland as captain. It was quite a fearful event going through that Man City game without Haaland as captain. I survived that. That seemed like a momentous thing, but then Saka ended up just getting one measly bonus point extra more than Haaland. So yeah, ended up getting one extra point from doing that captaincy swap. But I think it was worth it, and I'm kind of happy that I was able to at least pinpoint the week where Haaland had a bit of a tough week to play and be a captaincy choice there. But yeah, I think Saka, I think that might be the last time I captain Saka. I think he's just a pretty safe player usually. He usually gets an assist or a goal or something like that. He usually gets a goal return, but he very rarely hauls like what we saw from Cole Palmer this past game week, who was obviously the main guy to have in Game Week 6. He got 25 points, and that's never going to happen with Saka at all. You're never going to get a score like that. So anyone that captain Palmer have such a huge leg up compared to someone like me that captain Saka, for example, if you're going to go against the Haaland differential captain. So I think that will go into my thinkings when it comes to captaining Haaland in the future, as you'll see when it comes to my plans for Game Week 7 as well. I'm going to have a bit of a captaincy discussion for my Game Week 7 plans eventually. But yeah, all in all, 54 points. I got another green arrow, 1.2 million in the world just about, and that is pretty fine at this point of the season. I think there's a lot of good managers behind me as well in the overall rankings, so I feel like I'm in a pretty good position so far in the season, and it can easily switch around and be a really good season as well pretty soon. So I think even if you're super low in the rankings, if you're 3 or 4 million right about now, doesn't really matter that much. I think there's a lot of people in front of you that you can catch up with over the course of the season if you pay attention to creators like me, I guess. I'm going to try to give you the best advice possible, but obviously you should go with your own gut instincts. I don't think you should just copy my team or copy my thoughts exactly. Just take it into account and see what you want to do with those thoughts that I provide you, basically. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Game Week 6. I used my wildcard, and pretty happy with the decision in general. And if you want to know more in depth about my decision to wildcard and how I ended up getting the team that I had, you can check out my video from earlier in the week, which I'll link in the description as well. But let's move on to the free hit draft from Game Week 6 as well. And it is very, very similar. It's just basically Ulaina and Arzabalaga in for Sanchez and Lewis, pretty much. That's pretty much the difference. And that means I got 54 points because they got the exact same score, those two players, as the ones that they replaced. So yeah, that's it basically for this squad as well. The same amount of points, not the best game week. Obviously, I wish I had Palmer, like in hindsight. I actually picked Palmer both in game week 4 and game week 5 for my free hit draft. And he scored decently, especially in game week 5. He scored pretty good against West Ham. But this game week 6, for some reason, went without him. I expected Brighton to give Chelsea more of a tough game, I guess, especially defensively. Brighton have looked decent so far defensively, and I was really surprised to see Palmer do that well. The one player that I wish that I had here was actually Salah, who was the one that I really wanted to have. And just looking back at it, I should probably have gone with Salah over Haaland as like my main expensive guy, especially since I said that I had some doubts about Haaland going into that game week. So that's probably something that I should have done differently from a free draft. But very happy about my favorite differential being Watkins up front. I also had him in my own team. He got 11 points. I actually have him as my vice captain in the free draft. I had Haaland as my vice captain in my actual team. But on the free draft, the video last week, you can check back as well. I actually had Watkins as my vice captain, and I think I was supposed to change that from Haaland as well. But I didn't in the end. But yeah, very happy to have him as like a favorite differential. I think he was a really, really good player. He's one of the players that I ended up getting in the end because I was so jealous of people that had him for game week 6. So I just figured I should get him on the wildcard, and then I'll have him and be able to sell him down for a striker that looks good within the next 2 weeks. And then I can downgrade and get some more money for example, Palmer or Foden potentially in game week 8 is something that I might look to do as well by downgrading Watkins to like a 6.0 or 5.5 type of striker. So yeah, very happy with the Watkins pick, both in the free draft and in my own team. He got 11 points, obviously, which is one of the better scores from this past game week. So really happy with that. I should actually probably, in these graphics, I should probably add like the players that have actually been included in the team of the week to see how many of the team of the week players I actually managed to get. I should probably like add a symbol for any of the players that I picked in the free draft that actually became one of the best players in that particular game week. I should do that from now on. So that's something you can expect from next team selection video onwards, I guess. Semenyo as my differential in midfield, 7 points for him. Happy with that as well. He looked really, really good for Brentford. Was really close to getting an assist. Probably should have had some bonus points as well. He was announced as the man of the match, but the bonus point system is a bit different in FPL, so he didn't get that. But he easily could have had more. Both, if he had gotten an assist extra, he probably would have had 3 bonus points as well. So he's really close to an even bigger haul, Semenyo. So I'm really happy with him as well. Ula in defense, just a really like weak penalty that they gave away in Nottingham Forest, but apart from that, it seemed like they should have kept the clean sheet. Same with Arrizabalaga in goal as well. The two differences that I had for my own team, Aina and Arrizabalaga for this gaming only, I think they were both really unlucky not to keep a clean sheet. The same with Arrizabalaga, conceded a goal from Harvard Bellis from a header when they were kind of dominating Southampton. So yeah, I think those two players were really good picks as well, and they are basically the only two players that I didn't have in my own team. Actually, but I also I keep track of, because I've done this free draft for every single game week so far, except for game week 1 where I've just used the score that I got from my own team, and I've added up those points together, and so far this season on my free hit drafts I've accumulated 410 points over the first 6 game weeks, which is enough for an overall rank of 535k. So obviously you get a huge advantage if you can free hit every single week. That would be a huge help for you in FPL, obviously, but it's not as easy as it looks. Sometimes you pick a completely wrong team. Sometimes you actually have a better score from your own team than your free hit draft as well. I think last season, I was I think like 60% of the time, 65% of the time, my free hit draft got more points than my actual team, but that's not what you expect going into it. I think it's just really tough to pick players each and every week, and sometimes there are players that you have in your own team that actually outscore the players that look to have better fixtures that game week. So that's something that happens sometimes. But yeah, all in all, 54 points for the free draft as well. Overall rank for the free hit team is 535k. Like I said, pretty happy with that as well. And I'm going to keep track of that throughout the season. And yeah, like I said, I'm going to do the free draft every single week. And that is true for this week as well. Game week 7. We have a free draft for Game week 7, which is quite a bit different from last week's team, but also has a lot of similarities as well. It's also pretty similar to my own team, but also has some slight variations, I guess. But in goal, I've actually selected the same goalkeeper that I have myself, and that is Robert Sanchez for Chelsea, playing at home to Nottingham Forest. I know Nottingham Forest have a pretty good record at Stamford Bridge the last few seasons, but I think Chelsea should just be a better team in that game. I think it's going to be a tight game. I don't think it's going to be a goal fest by any means, but I think it could easily be like a 1-0, 2-0 win for Chelsea. So I think Sanchez is a pretty good goalkeeper for that game week, but again, could always be a Chris Wood goal from that game as well. But I don't think there's any like super standout goalkeepers this week, apart from David Raya, obviously, but I've triple up on Arsenal in a different spot. So I think Sanchez is the best goalkeeper to have for Game Week 7 in particular. And yeah, it's good for me because I have Sanchez in my team already. And yeah, this is one of the fixtures where I was hoping to get some clean sheet points from Sanchez. And I think that could happen this week as well. In defense, Gabriel Magalhaes, I think I'm just going to pick him, especially in these easy fixtures. It's just so easy to pick him. He was close to scoring even last week as well from a corner against Leicester. And yeah, he's just so good at the moment. He's playing every single game, 90 minutes. He's such a huge threat from set pieces, as we've seen from Arsenal as well. And yeah, don't really have to explain too much for Gabriel. Guardiola, fresh off his goal from last week, he was also subbed off early in the Champions League game, which makes me believe that he's going to start in this game. So I slightly prefer him over Lewis, who I'm not completely sure is going to start for Man City in this game against Fulham. I think Fulham are a pretty good team, but they're definitely better defensively than offensively so far this season, in my opinion. So I think Man City can actually keep a clean sheet here, and I think Guardiola will be a really good player this week. He could also score, especially if Rico Lewis doesn't play. Guardiola will play even higher up in the pitch, and he can be one of the best players in this game week, and that's why I've selected him for the free hit draft, basically, for Game Week 7. Final defender, I had to spend just not too much money on a defender in this instance because I had a lot of money spent for the rest of the team, as you can see, eventually. So I went for Mickey van de Ven, who's been fantastic so far this season, 2 wonderful assists. Spurs looked a lot better defensively and can keep a clean sheet as well. Playing against Brighton away, which is a tough fixture, I think, especially for a defender, but I think they also have quite a few injuries. It seems like Joao Pedro is out still. Van Heck seems to be out as well, so yeah, Brighton could struggle a bit to score in that game, and I think Van de Ven is a decent pick for this game week. Saka against Southampton at home, I think it's pretty much a no-brainer. I think Saka is really, really good in these fixtures. He's pretty much a guarantee for points at least. But like I said, not sure about his potential to haul that much. So yeah, he's just in the squad, but I think he's just a really, really safe pick this week. And as you can see, I haven't picked Palmer for the free draft. I haven't picked Saka. So if you have Saka and you're wondering if you should transfer him out for Palmer, I don't think that's the right play to do because I think Saka has a better fixture this week and I think he has a better chance of getting points than Palmer this week. But Palmer has surprised me before. He could do it again, but I just, once again, just tried to back Saka because I think he is such a standout player in general in these types of games against Southampton. The differential that I've actually gone with in midfield is Phil Foden rather than Palmer. He's a bit cheaper. He's about like 1.5 million cheaper now, even though he started 1.0 million cheaper from the start of the game. But it seems like Foden is back to his best. Played in the Champions League, got a goal and an assist, I think, and it looked really, really good. He also did really well against Fulham last time around, I think, if I'm not mistaken. That's one of the things I actually looked into. Man City just completely destroyed Fulham throughout 2 games last season. So I think with the same manager for Fulham, Marco Silva, it's going to be tough for them. But obviously they have Anderson now. They look a lot better defensively than they did last season. In the first game between City and Fulham last season, they played with Tim Ream and Issa Diop as centre backs. And now they are a lot better for Fulham, the centre backs that they do have. So especially with Joachim Andersen coming in and being such a good player for them. And Calvin Bassett as on top of that as well. I think they will be a lot more secure than what they did against City last season. But at the same time, I still think City will kind of easily win this game. Most likely. So I've picked Foden. I think he's a really good differential. It seems like he's in really good form. And I think he's someone that you should consider if you're on a wildcard, in particular for Game Week 7. I think he's definitely someone to consider. I didn't talk about him too much in the weekly wildcard draft video. Kind of regret doing that. I did that before the Champions League game, so I didn't really get the latest intel on that before I did the wildcard draft for Game Week 7. But I think Foden is someone that I sort of overlooked earlier in the week, and I wanted to make sure that you guys are considering him. But of course, there's always rotation risk with City. You don't really know what's going to happen with Phil Foden and the Pep Roulette in general. So yeah, he is a slightly risky pick, but I think he's pretty good, and I think my bench options are decent as well. So yeah, Foden against Fulham, I think it's a pretty good play. And Mbeumo, I think he's still really, really good. Scored again against West Ham, got 9 points. Yes, Brentford aren't as good offensively now without Johan Wissa up front, but I also think they will be able to adjust now. It's always tougher, I think, when you lose a player, it's always tougher to adjust in the first game after you've lost them. And I think that was the case with Man City as well, after losing Rodri and not having De Bruyne last week as well. I think it's going to be easier this time around when they've gotten a week to play with each other and they have sort of more of an understanding what they need to do in the game. And I think it's the same for Brentford as well. I think they will be better and better without Jan Vissa. He's a really good player, obviously, but he's not like that important. And I think also, like I've said a couple times already in past videos, I think it was also down to West Ham figuring some stuff out defensively and playing Todibo, who's a much better defender than Mavropanos as a centre-back. So I think Brentford will still be decent going forward, and I think Mbeumo is just so pivotal to everything that Brentford does. So I think he's still a really good player to have for Game Week 7 and beyond that as well, obviously, with the great fixtures that Brentford have currently. Wolves at home should be a really, really nice game for them. Wolves are bottom of the table for a reason. Part of that reason is actually multiple reasons that they are bottom of the table. One of the reasons is that they've had really tough matches, but also because defensively they're not the best. They sold Max Gilman, their best defender last season, and they also got his backup, Mosquera, injured as well. So yeah, they're struggling defensively, and I think Mbeumo will take advantage of that. Then we get to the man of the hour, as it were, in Brennan Johnson, who has been amazing lately, scoring 5 goals in 5 games, I think, or he scored at least in the 5 past games. And I think he's going to continue doing that against Brighton away. I think Brighton are going to have that super high line like they played against Chelsea. I think it's a really good chance for Johnson to do really well. I kind of wanted to go with Solanke this week as well. I was trying to fit him in. But then I would have to drop Foden, I think, and I just wanted to go with Foden as like a nice differential guy for Game Week 7. But Johnson, I think, should be able to take advantage of Brighton's defensive deficiencies, and he's just in such red-hot form that you sort of have to pick him in a Game Week 7 free hit draft in general, or as someone you want to have for the next few game weeks. I think Johnson is looking like a really, really good pick. He was actually in my wildcard draft as well for Game Week 7, so yeah, he's looking amazing, and I think he's going to have a really nice game week to show for it as well. Then we have Semenyo, who again has looked really, really good for Bournemouth this whole season, playing against Leicester, which is one of the worst teams in the league, and Leicester away from home. And I think that's not really the worst either. When you play one of these really bad teams, it's actually not the worst to play them away, because they have to put out for their own home fans, especially in a game against Bournemouth. Leicester fans will expect them to try to attack it and try to win the game, and that will open things up for Semenyo, I think, against a pretty weak defense in Leicester. So I think he's going to have a really good game week as well. Semenyo, this is like the final game week before he gets a really tough fixture run, and I would take advantage of that in general, both on the free hit draft and with my own team. I have him as well, and I'm really happy to have him on top of that. Then we have Haaland, who I actually gone with as captain. I think he is the best captaincy choice this week. Still, I'm a bit unsure about it. I was really close to considering going without him as captain, going with someone else as captain instead, but I think he's just the safest pick, basically. Even last time around against Newcastle, even though he did blank and had like not the best underlying numbers, that was mostly down to Ilkay Gundogan just having a terrible game and not being being selfish and doing like a long shot rather than passing to Haaland in one regard, and Haaland being unlucky in some other instances as well. So I think Haaland is still a fantastic player, fantastic striker. I don't think you should lose faith in him at all. If you're on a wildcard, definitely have him. He's still my number 1 pick on the wildcard draft. And I think he's also my number 1 pick as a captain as well. But I did consider going with Havertz as captain. I think he's looked really, really good lately. Scored in the Champions League as well against PSG for Arsenal. He's getting a lot of chances, got a lot of chances last game against Leicester, and I think he has a really decent chance to get a lot of points this week. Kai Havertz at home to Southampton. One of my favorite differentials this week, as you can see. He's my favorite forward differential, because Haaland is not really a differential anyway. So I was kind of forced to pick him, I guess, as my favorite differential forward. But at the same time, I think actually out of all the forwards, he's also the best guy to have. And that's why he's in my team, basically. But yeah, Haaland, I think is going to be my captain. I'm going to talk more about that in my Game Week plans, because I don't really have Game Week 7 plans, because I don't really have anything else to talk about. But we'll get to that pretty soon. But on the bench, goalkeeper, doesn't really matter. Fabianski, just in case Areola has some back issues for some reason. But Sanchez is going to play anyway. It doesn't really matter. Vandenberg as my first defender against Wolves at home. I think they have a decent chance of getting a clean sheet, but I would suspect Wolves to score in that game. But Vandenberg played as a right back last time around and was kind of offensively minded as well in that game. So I think he's a pretty decent guy off the bench. Then we have Mykolenko, second bench, and there's a bit of a blow to Mykolenko's chances of keeping a clean sheet this week, because there are news about Branthwaite now getting another small injury, and that will basically make it tougher for Everton to keep a clean sheet. So he's not as good of a bench option anymore, Mykolenko, but he's decent to have there. And Newcastle are lacking Isak and Callum Wilson still as well, so they could also blank, even though they scored against City just now. But But yeah, he's on the bench anyway, Mykolenko. And then finally, Stewart, just because I don't have any money left, and he's the only 4.5 or 4.6 now forward that does play a little bit at least. So yeah, he's the final guy on the bench, but you don't really need him because on a free hit draft, you don't really expect your bench to come into play at all. So you can basically just have it as cheap as possible. I think all the players in my starting 11 should play some minutes at least. Like all of them are pretty secure starters. I guess it's just Guardiola and Foden that are like a bit iffy when it comes to minutes. But I think both of them will probably play. Probably will start both of them as well, and that's why I picked them in the squad basically. But yeah, that's my free draft for Game Week 7. These are the players that I think are the best players to have in Game Week 7. Like I said, it's pretty similar to my own team. You can see there players that I own. Out of these 15 players, I have 9 out of them in my squad already. 2 of them are Fabianski and Mykolenko on the bench. So 7 starters. I actually have myself 7 out of 11 starters. So it's pretty similar. But yeah, let's just check out my team for Game Week 7 and my plans. And my plans are basically just to stand pat and do nothing. Just save up transfers. I have 1 free transfer, 0.7 in the bank. So I actually have the exact money to go from Saka to Palmer if I wanted to, but I don't want to basically. I haven't even listed it as a possibility because I'm just pretty dead set on keeping Saka for now. Probably now against Southampton home and then Bournemouth away next game week as well. I'm going to have Saka rather than Palmer, and then Game Week 9, I'm probably going to do Saka to Palmer, I'm guessing. But I might also get Foden next week in Game Week 8. I'll have 2 free transfers, and Watkins will go into a pretty tough fixture run, so I probably will downgrade Watkins and potentially upgrade Semenyo to get a really good team going forward in that game week as well. But I'm still not quite sure about the Game Week 8 plans. But when it comes to my Game Week 7 plans, basically just stand still, do nothing. I'm pretty happy with the team. Lewis might not play or might not start at least. Maybe he'll come on, but even if he comes on and plays 30 minutes, of course he's not going to get clean sheet potential. He's not going to get any clean sheets at all if he doesn't play 60 minutes plus, but he could still get assists, goals, and all that stuff if he plays like 30 minutes. And I think even if he doesn't play, there's a big chance that there's a decent chance at least that he just stays on the bench. We've seen that in the past before. That's sometimes the benefit of City defenders. Sometimes they just stay on the bench for the whole 90 minutes and you get in someone off the bench yourself. And in this instance, it would be Mykolenko most likely, but maybe I will switch up the order between Mykolenko and Greaves because I'm not so sure about Everton keeping a clean sheet anymore if Brantford is out. So maybe I go with Greaves as my first defender. That might be one of the issues, I guess, that I have. And again, the captaincy thing, Haaland or Havertz, that is basically like the decision I have to make on captaincy, but I'm pretty much like 90% sure that I'm going to go with Haaland just as a safe bet. And like I said, last game week, it's not really enjoyable to go without Haaland as captain when everyone else has gone with Haaland as captain. So probably going to do that again against Fulham. But I just to warn you guys, I think Fulham are a lot better than what they're giving credit for defensively. So I don't think it's going to be like a massive haul by any means for Haaland, but I just don't think any other players, at least in my squad, are good enough to be really good captaincy choices. If I had Salah, then maybe Salah against Crystal Palace over Haaland. But I think Havertz is also a pretty good shout. But it's just the fact that Salah has penalties, Haaland has penalties. That's the thing that makes me more inclined to pick them. So if I was between Salah and Haaland this week as captain, it would probably be more like 50-50, 60-40-ish who I would pick between. But in this instance, I'm pretty like 90% sure I'm going to go with Haaland as captain still. But I do like Havertz. I do also like Watkins for what it's worth against Man United, because Man United are pretty terrible. I'm recording this as they are finishing up their game against Porto, and they did end up drawing actually 3-3 with Maguire scoring right at the end there. But yeah, they gave away a 2-0 lead and were down 3-2 all the way up until the last minute or the final few minutes in that game. So yeah, I think Man United are there for the taking, and that's why I'm really happy to have Rodgers and Watkins at home at Villa Park after that huge win against Bayern Munich as well in the Champions League. I think they're going to be really, really good players for that game week. But yeah, standing pat, not doing any transfers this week. I'm pretty happy with my team in general. Yeah, not really too much to say about it either. I've talked about most of the guys on the free hit draft selection. The difference is that I have Lewis, of course. I have Trent as well, who could, again, this is what I've talked about earlier in this video, that my game week 17 might actually outscore my free hit 17 because I do have Trent against Wolves away, and I think that's a really, really good player to have, but he's just a bit too expensive to have in the free hit draft, so I dropped him there. But he could be someone that all of a sudden hauls, gets like a goal, an assist, and 3 bonus points and clean sheet, and then all of a sudden my game week 17 is actually better than my free hit 17, which sometimes happens. But yeah, pretty happy with my team overall. As you can see from the starting 11, not really any weak points at all in the team. So yeah, really happy with that. And I think that's more the case now that we can save up to 5 transfers. I think if you're looking at your squad and all 11 players that you have look pretty good in the matches, like all the matches look pretty good. There's no weak links, no like really tough matches there. I think you should just save your transfers and wait for the next week, because yeah, you could always get a haul from someone else. I think the only difference would be if there's like a really good captaincy shout, and then maybe I would do a transfer even if your squad looks pretty good on paper. But I think in general, it's just better to save up transfers. They are very, very valuable this season, especially seeing as we can save up until 5 transfers. In seasons past, it's been like we saved up 2 transfers and then you don't really have anything to use them on. So you just use the transfer, just wasted a transfer to switch your bench goalkeeper or something like that. But this time around, that's never going to happen. You're never going to use a transfer just for the sake of using it, I think. So I think they're just more valuable this season, seeing as you can save them up by a lot. So if you have a team like mine, it's looking really, really good this game week. I don't think I would use a free transfer. I think I would just save it up and save it for a nice shiny day. Save it for a rainy day, I guess is the saying. But anyways, I would probably just save the transfer and build up as many free transfers as possible, because it's going to be very helpful this season in general. So yeah, those are just my quick thoughts in general about Game Week 7 and also what happened in Game Week 6 as well. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you give it a like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Comment down below if you have any questions about your team going into Game Week 7. But like I said, most of the time I'm going to say that you should probably just stick to what you have mostly, especially if you have like a decent starting 11. I don't think there's any like huge issues, especially this late in the Game Week 7 window. You're not going to do much when it comes to price changes and stuff either, so you're not going to save money as well by saving any or selling any players or stuff like that. But anyways, that is it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it as always, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.